Hi there, it's Miracle, and today I'm going to talk about 3 books on the long list of women's prize for fiction, in which 2 of them already made to the shortlist. But I think it's not my first time to say I really strongly disagree with the shortlist this year. For example, among the 3 books that I will talk about today, although I'm happy for The Silence of Ghosts by Pat Butler, I'm really disappointed to see that Ordinary People also made to the shortlist. This book left me a period of very miserable time, and I don't really enjoy it at all, and it almost put me in a reading slump. So I don't understand. And Freshwater is a book that I enjoyed much more than Ordinary People, but it didn't get to the shortlist. But it's time to let the book review begin, and I think I'll just go with Ordinary People first, just to get over it sooner. Ordinary People by Diana Ives, as the name suggested, pictured 2 couples which are ordinary people, and they had been together for many years. They live in London and have a lot of common friends. And also, their excitement of life kind of disappeared over time. Some people may think the things happening in the book are ordinary life because that's the whole purpose after all, and some people may suggest that the things in the book are too stretched and not in a very good way. And I don't need to mention that I'm the latter group of people, and this book left me some very miserable, like literally miserable time. So I think we'll just start with the miserable things. First of all, this is a book that packed with a lot of marital problems. People are disconnected from each other and disconnected from their current situation. People got lost in long-term relationships. And also, the things that they don't properly discuss at first are gradually tore them apart. But that is not a kind of problem that you think is worth caring for, because at some point, I feel like the characters, they deserve the problems that they have because of the improper communication or because of some of their selfish behaviors. But me as a reader, I don't deserve to get the same frustrated emotion as the characters because I didn't do a lot of those things and I wouldn't think the same way. It's just a lot of times that doesn't make sense to me. And I think if I wasn't reading for the long list, I would just DNF the book at the middle of the book, which I did to one of the long list book, but that's a topic for another video. Secondly, there are a lot of concept in the book that was not properly developed. For example, there is, if I understood it right, there is a supernatural element in the book, which I think is unnecessary, and it feels like the plot needs to have a conflict at some point, and they couldn't think about any conflict. So better make it supernatural, so you don't need to explain it further, kind of that feeling. Thirdly, the book tried to tie itself with a lot of social environment changes. For example, it started with the date that Barack Obama was first elected, and also later on, it drew a lot of attention to the death of Michael Jackson, which I feel like the book was trying to say the struggle of the individuals, they are the struggles of their own, and it is very hard for individuals to carry away their emotions by the big social structure. Although sometimes it seems like that on the surface, but deep down, people are still struggling with their own issues. But the thing is, those big things are not suitably placed in the story, and a lot of times it feels unnecessary and feel detached from each other. Maybe I'm wrong, so if you have some different understanding, please let me know in the comment section down below. But the book also has something that I appreciate. For example, it shows how difficult it is for people, especially women, to balance work and life, and also it dealt with some of the misconception of working from home. But mostly, I appreciate the book shows the different possibilities of relationships. One couple in the book, they had a partnership relationship, so they are not married, but they have children together. And I like that although they have a lot of frustration and problems in their relationship, but a lot of them comes from the common understanding of the partnership and also come from the inside of their relationship. It is not come from the pressure of other people to their partnership relationship. They're kind of the same thing. Anyway, so I like the book didn't downgrade the possibilities of different kind of long-term relationships. But overall, I only give this book 2.5 stars, and I didn't understand why it's on the shortlist, so let's move on. The next book I'm going to talk about is Freshwater by Kraki Amazi. This is a stunning novel talking about a girl called Ada who has multiple gods live in her body. The gods were born when she was having some traumatized experiences, and they were born to protect her. And she sometimes can communicate her feelings with the gods, but she couldn't control what does the god do to her body. So if you are listening to this and you think it sounds a lot like dissociative identity disorder, I think you are right. First of all, I need to say there are a lot trigger warnings in this book. They are sexual violence, especially rape, and violence towards others, and self-harm, and suicidal thoughts and actions, and depressions, and all of that. So if you are not comfortable reading those topics, I highly suggest you to not reading this book because it will be very hard. Back to the story. Ada was born in Nigeria, and they have a very different belief system compared to the Westerns. And people like Ada who was born with the gods are called one foot on the other side. And later on, Ada went to America to pursue her study, and because she got influenced by the Western beliefs a lot, so one of the gods in Ada's body was consistently fight with the Western beliefs in Ada's body, which I find is very interesting. At first, I thought the book was very mythological, with all the atmosphere built up to be in a world that beyond humans. But the more I listen to the gods talking about where do they come from, why they came, and what they do to Ada's body, the more I think of this is just talking about a story growing up with different identities in one host body. But the thing is, whether Ada has DID or not, or whether Ada really have different gods in her body is never clear to the readers, so it depends on us to be the judge. Clearly, based on our different understandings, we have two ways to interpret the book. The first one is just to accept this very mysterious world where gods can come to humans' body to protect them, and the other one is just reading this book from a mental health perspective. And as uninteresting as I am as a human being, I read the book from the mental health perspective. So I really enjoyed and appreciated this book in which it gave us a brand new way to look at DID. And speaking of DID, I will link a full review did by Acacia down below in the description box, and you have to check it out. It is absolutely fascinating. It is a own-voiced review and a lot more thoughtful than my review here, and a lot more informative. Other than that, I think this book is extremely difficult to review, so I think all I can say is I really loved this book, and if you are fine with all the trigger warnings, I highly recommend you to give it a go. And also, if you have read the book, please let me know your thoughts about this book, and we can talk a little bit about why this book is not on the shortlist. I don't understand. And yeah, that's it for Freshwater. Lastly, we have The Silence of Ghosts by Pat Barker, and this is the book that I enjoyed the most on the shortlist, and I have read all the books on the shortlist so far. So I think if it wins the Women's Prize for Fiction this year, I will be very happy. This is another great mythology retelling on this list, and it is a retelling about the Trojan War, talking from a perspective of a woman called Briseis. She witnessed Achilles killed all her brothers and her husband, and she was given to Achilles as the prize of his victory. I think if you are familiar with Greek mythologies, you probably know where the story will go. However, it is not the case for me. As I said in my Thursday's review, I am a total newbie, so it actually took me a while to figure out who's who in the story. I cannot stop but compare to the book with Thursday, and compared to Thursday, I think this book requires your more attention if you are not familiar with the story, because at first I couldn't go into the book and I listened on audio, and I have to re-listen to the first hour or so on audio to continue reading the book. To be honest, at first when I listened to the book, I thought it's not my cup of tea because I was so confused. But I'm really glad I gave it a second chance, and I totally fall in love with the story. The tone of the book was always grieving because mostly we get the perspective from Briseis, and she was having this traumatic time, and now she is a slave to Achilles. So I think also because she's a slave, so her emotions are always restrained. And you can tell from the story that she tries her best to control her emotions, even something relatively happy or good happened to her. And this made the whole book much more sorrow. Another point that I compare this book to Circe is that Circe was a god, and Briseis is a human being which existed in a fantasy or a historical world. But it is much easier to relate to the Silence of Ghosts than the book Circe, because a lot of the emotions of Briseis that I can easily relate to, but a lot of the emotions in Circe that I feel distance. Maybe because the voice of a god and a human are different. But it is not to say that I don't enjoy Circe. I love Circe a lot also. I enjoy this book even more than Circe, which is a very good sign because I really liked Circe. And it is not a coming of age story as Circe, and I shouldn't mention Circe anymore. Anyhow, and this book is a historical fiction kind of fantasy, which I liked a lot. Also, as the title suggests, this book is talking about how the women are always silenced in this kind of ancient mythologies, and they don't have anything to say even when it comes to the decision to their fate. So I think it is a little surprise to see there's another perspective that we got. It is a third-party voice talking about the story of the men in the world, particularly Achilles. I think this is another way to show how the women are silenced in their world. Their story are not complete only by their own voice, because a lot of decisions are not made by them. You have to hear from the man's perspective in order to complete the women's story. This is a very tragic feeling and a very heavy one, but I think it emphasized how women are forced to be blind when making decisions in the story. So as readers, if we want to get a full picture of the women's destiny in the book, we have to listen from the men. There are so many other things that I enjoyed in this book. For example, one point, Briseis compared her life with Helen's, how this simply incredible, beautiful woman seems to have a relatively better life, but deep down, they have the same uncontrollable situation just because they are both women. One thing touched me the most was the discussion about the consequences of the war, what it feels like to lose everything, and how people's mind can change before the war or during the war or after a war, and how empathy or sympathy can bring enemies together. I also enjoyed a lot about the power play between the men, particularly between Achilles and Agamemnon. But the more I think about it, the more I think the credit of the power play should go directed to the original mythology, not to this book, because the whole story was basically the same, I think. But because I get into the story kind of the first time, of course I know the Trojan War, but I don't know a lot of details like this. So it still sounds very fascinating for me. Overall, this is the book that I enjoyed the most on the shortlist, and I really hope it wins. But I don't think it will happen because I know a lot of people prefer Circe more than this book that I know of. This is all I have for today, and I hope you find this review video helpful. If you have any thoughts about any of the books that I mentioned, or the shortlist, or even the long list, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. And also, don't forget to say hi. And yeah, I hope you're happy reading, and I will see you in my next bookish video. Bye!